thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I'm sure we all, on behalf of QB, we all appreciate you all coming out. It's a big crowd. Thank you. Father Stephen has a great story. I can't wait to hear it. So without further ado, I just want to make a question before just in the respects, if we have to be leaving quickly, just make sure. I want to make sure there are some clear aisles. Just for whatever reason, make sure that everybody have good exits here. So
we'll make it work.
Right here. Okay. So there are two restrooms on this floor. They're single stalls. So if you need to go to the restroom at any point, they're on the right side of the hall. They're right next to each other. The one kind of looks like you're entering into a bedroom, which at one point probably was. But there's another room that is the bathroom there. If at any point in time you need that. We also have waters on the back table and a water tank back there as well. There's more bathrooms on the lower level. All right. Thank you, Caleb. Okay, so it's a nice guest, Father Stephen, as you all know, I'm sure. He's come all the way from the UK. He currently works, but he's originally from Nigeria. So I would like to warm welcome Father Stephen.
To listen to this boring story. Can't believe it. I will really begin by thanking all of you for coming and for your time, for your availability to listen to this story, which I am sharing on behalf of millions of others who are not able to be here to share this story. And before I proceed, I want to thank my family here, Tina and Dan and Audrey, who have been, I don't know what else will a human being be looking for in a family. They have given me everything a family can provide to anybody in this world. Please, I would like you to help me put a big round of applause to this. Now, any book is not made by one person. And I requested we thank them because when I began writing this work, sorry, I need to learn how to use this. Okay. First of all, just to say that this is going to be the fifth place I'll be talking about the book. The first time we had it at the University of Surrey on the 8th of October. That was when I started talking about this book. And then the second time was in a university in Nigeria on the 17th of October. And just on Friday, I had the event at Notre Dame University also, just talking about the same thing. Today, I am more than happy to be here in your midst. Now, every book has co-authors in different ways. When I was writing the book, I gave few persons to help me review the work, including Tina. She helped to shape the book to the current state in which it is. So I don't take the credit alone because so many persons helped to write the book in different capacities. Now, if you look at this book, this is the front cover, and this is the map of Africa. And then this is a young lady who was kidnapped with us, but thankfully she's alive. And you could see her face and her eyes looking battered. And it just demonstrates the trauma millions of Nigerians are living with, how their brains, their lives is shattered as a result of insecurity and banditry that has affected so many families and so many people all across Nigeria. And the book is given, this man is called Bishop Matthew Asampuka. He is one of the leading figures in Nigeria. His voice is very loud in the church and in the state. He wrote the foreword to the book. And when you read the foreword to the book, you'll have a glimpse of, how life looks like in Nigeria and how tyrants try to cover up their misdeeds. And then he was so thankful to the fact that I have a rare privilege of putting down the story of what has happened to me and to millions of Nigerians. And the book is going to remain as an archive or a document of history for generations yet unborn. Now, in chapter 1 of the book, I began by talking about how ordinary families, what they go through in their lives. Now, many of you just know me as a priest, but I have a background, I have a history. So I tried to connect all the readers to how I started my life and what many millions of ordinary people go through in Nigeria. For example, in Nigeria, if a woman gives birth to 5 girls without a boy, no matter how holy or wonderful you are as a woman, your marriage is in trouble. Because the only thing that can give a woman stability in a marriage is when you give birth to a male child. Exactly, you can laugh. But I wanted to just bring that because my parents went through that kind of experience. My mother gave birth to 4 girls before I was giving birth to. And when I was giving birth to, she just said, now I can relax. Because she was already having trouble with my father's family. It's a normal thing. So I just wanted also to bring that natural, normal, day-to-day happenings in a country far away from where. So you get that in chapter 1. And then I also try to explain the different kinds of families in Nigeria. Because Nigeria is multi-ethnic and also multi-religious. For those who are Muslims, you can have as many as 40 children because you have more than one wife, and it's allowed in Islam. And then in chapter 2 of the book, I try to bring about my day-to-day life in my former parish where I was working. It is a rural community, they are farming community, they are very poor farmers. So I spent most of my life in assisting families who can't even feed. It was one of my normal, and I enjoyed doing it. I also talked about how water, I think this is where I actually met the Dixons. Water is a very big problem in most parts of Nigeria, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. So provision of water to so many communities, both Muslims.
I think so, hopefully.
Okay. So, provision of water is a normal life for a priest in Nigeria, and which I invested most of my energies to do, both to Christian communities and to Muslim communities. You can see some of the pictures there. In chapter 3, I try to talk about a situation that is so very common in Nigeria. For example, where I work is in the northwestern part of Nigeria, where there are many Muslims. So interfaith work is very, very necessary for stability of the community. I had to engage the Muslims to be able to help my people live their lives productively. Now, because we are a very tiny population, so a good relationship with the Muslim community also helps to build the confidence of the Christians. So this is a visit by myself and a sister who works with me in terms of bridging the gap between Muslims and Christians. So I try to give examples of how certain children got missing. But somehow, I tried to get involved in getting them rescued from wherever they were missing. So I explained that in my chapter 3. Now, these men are very interesting in Nigeria. One of them is a Muslim, one is a Christian. In 1992, these two men fought a bitter war. They all led rebellions against each other. The one is a pastor. If you look at his hand, it is an official hand because they fought religious wars that led to this man's destruction of his arm, and this imam lost his younger brother as a result of the fight. After 5 years of their lives, they began to see sense and reason, and they tried to come together to build fellowship and friendship across religious divide. So they formed an organization called Interfaith Mediation Center. Now, I have used them a lot in settling conflicts back in my community because most of the conflicts in northern Nigeria are religiously motivated. And the only way to be involved and to douse the tension is to bring people like this together to show community how peace can exist despite of religious differences. Now, in chapter 4 of the book, I try to give a very a good academic background to the different levels of insecurity in Nigeria. Here, it is very academic, with facts and figures and data to back most of my claims. And Nigeria is where it is because of so many factors. Socioeconomic factors, unequal distribution of wealth, a legacy of bad governance, the corrosive grip of corruption, poison of identity politics, competition for scarce resources. All these are layers of factors to where or that gives rise to insecurity and instability. So I try to explain that with very clear analysis in my chapter 4. Oh, going the wrong way. Okay, so chapter 5 is where I also began to give some data. Now, my story is just one in the midst of so many. And this is a data of number of violent incidents by armed men from 2009 to 2024. So you can imagine how the numbers kept rising. From 2009, how from just violent incidences. And very often, these went on unreported. So I captured that through an organization called Chasup Intelligence. They have been gathering all this data for the past 20 years. I consulted them. I paid a huge amount of money just to source this data from them. Now, of course, so it continues like that in chapter 5. And then in chapter, this is also another very important data, that between, just in 10 years' time, you have this number of students who have been kidnapped from schools alone, 2,012 students. And these are the numbers in all the states. Some schools, as many as 400 students were kidnapped in a day. As many as that. And all these numbers, I don't think they ever got it announced in any international media. In fact, even in Nigeria, unless you're careful, you'll never know this kind of things happen. So I got all this information and just showed it in this particular map. So in chapter 6 is where I'm getting to expose the reader to the reality of what is happening to me in person. Because all those were just like background to the important story of my personal kidnapping. So in chapter 6, you will find a short story or a text message between somebody who just sent me a text and said to me he was giving some money to kill me. Or rather, he was hired to kill me. And if I was going to pay him, he would tell me why he was hired to kill me. Well, I took it serious. I know it was not a joke, so I took it serious. And so I just brought all those information as part of chapter 6. And as I also shared, this experience left me in serious fear. And Tina here can testify. On several occasions, I've explained to her how fearful I always feel as a result of what is happening. So when I got that text message, I was really, really in shock. Now, 30 days later, in chapter 7, I talk about the D-Day. In chapter 7, this is where Boko Haram came. On the 24th of May, around 11 p.m., these men, I just saw them, right? Does somebody have handkerchief here or towel? Any face towel or any? I want to clean my face, I'm sweating. Yeah. Yeah. So in chapter 7, I began to talk about the invasion of Boko Haram in my room. I was sleeping. I was on my bed when they came. I just heard a knock or a tap on my shoulder that, wake up, you have visitors. This is how they introduced themselves to me. So when I opened my eyes, I just saw people, men. We were 4 in the house that day. So within 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, all of us were dragged out of the house. And we began trekking into the bush. We trekked. Personally, I wore nothing on my foot. I was sleeping, I was on my nightwear, just woke me up. For 2 days, we were moving. Of course, I was at some point very tired. I couldn't move. I was physically very tired. And the bandits of Boko Haram were smoking weed constantly. And in my head, because I saw them very strong and very active, so I now begged one of them to please give me weed to smoke. And I wanted anything that would give me strength. Normally, when they pick you up and you can't continue, they just shoot you and leave you there. And I didn't want them to kill me before those other persons that were picked. At least just to encourage them. So they asked me, have I smoked? Do I smoke? I said, no, I don't smoke. I said, well, this might be too strong for me. So we continued, but I was getting weaker and tired. So they now said to me, I begged them to give me anything to give me strength. So they gave me tramadol. Tramadol is one of those addictives or drugs for energy or whatever. So all I was looking for was anything that would give me strength and energy. So when I took tramadol, I became completely weak because I had not eaten any food, no water, and I took tramadol. In fact, I took it with some kind of water that we saw on the ground. So when I took the drug, I couldn't move again. One of those that was kidnapped with me called Hassan. Hassan was the one who lifted me on his shoulder to continue with the journey. Now, you will find those horrible details in chapter 7. When we got to where we eventually got to, now this is Okay, this is chapter 8. Chapter 8 is life, daily life in the kidnapper's den. So when we got to this particular place, eventually after trekking for 2 days, they asked all of us a question. Do you want to take tea? Do you want to take tea? And all of us, because we were hungry, we were tired, all of us simply said, yes, we want to take tea. So Boko Haram came close and they began to flog and beat the hell out of all of us. That was the tea they meant. And they were beating anything and any part of our bodies. In fact, this particular finger removed, I didn't know why, because of the beating. So when they finished beating us, they left us on the ground and they tied our legs with chain. Now that's a very normal life. In this chapter, I want to play a video to give you an idea of what people who have been kidnapped by Boko Haram go through. Just to warn you, there are some very, very gruesome images. Please be aware and be prepared. If you are not very strong, you might not be able to watch it till then. But I will just give you an idea. I won't play everything. Men or these people here and where they are sitting or where they are standing, rain falls on top of their heads as they are there, because you can see there is nothing, there is no building there. That is their house. They are going to be there for 10 days. That is exactly where they are going to be staying, because this was exactly where I was kept. This particular environment. No shelter, no nothing. This man that was shot, he doesn't even have water to even clean that wound. He's going to remain in that situation. And sadly and unfortunately, there are hundreds of thousands of people across Africa that Boko Haram has imprisoned and put in this situation. Up till now, they are still in their custody. So in chapter 8, I try to bring those details about what life is like living in the midst of those animals, I call them. So in chapter 9, okay, before chapter 8, before I leave here, let me come back. I was in this situation for 33 days. And after 3 weeks of living in this situation, they came to say to me, they have to kill one of us to show the pictures to our people. They feel the negotiation is not going their way, so somebody have to die. So they came and asked, among the 4 of us that they picked, who is going to be killed? Then they can send the pictures home. Well, I was the most senior priest. I had to step forward and said to them, I was going to go. They came in the morning, and they asked me, am I sure that I want to die? I said, well, I have no choice. I said, okay. They'll come back in the evening. In the evening, they came back, and they said to me, Father, Kashiria, are you ready? I said, yes, I'm ready. So they asked me to just turn and wish my people goodbye. I stood up, I turned, wished them goodbye, blessed them, and stepped forward. Normally, when they are about to kill you, they will take you to the killing spray, you dig your own grave, you enter halfway, they either stone you to death or they decapitate you with a knife. So if they are generous enough with you, they'll shoot you with a bullet. So we were going that road before one of them just simply said, from wherever, he just said, Father, Takoma. Now I was not sure whether I heard him well. Takoma means come back. I was not sure whether I heard him well, or whether I was still in this world as he was talking to me. When I turned, I saw the 2 of them arguing. So I came back. And I went to, and they asked me, I just come back. So I came back. And I got to the place where the others were kept. One of them already fainted as a result of the shock. So they kept us in that situation for the next 30 days. On the 30th day, they came and said, the ransom has been paid, that all of us will come back home. So they came and picked 2 people and left myself and one other person. And they said, because at that point again, I didn't know where they were taking them to. Whether they were going to take them to another camp or they were going to kill, I didn't know. So we just remained in that situation. On the 32nd day, on the 33rd day, they now came and said, well, the 2 of us again, we are to be going home, and we got in our freedom. Now before we left, brother, one of them asked me, Father, will you still forgive us after all we have done to you? Those were their words, those were their question. And at that point, of course, all those who were with me were already sick. Father Oliver, the other priest that was with me, we were not eating any reasonable food. We were drinking very, very dirty water. So Father Oliver was stooling blood for 2 weeks. He had peptic ulcer. And he already dying. So they asked me, will I still forgive them after all they have done? Well, deep down in my heart. And I meant it, and I still mean it. I said to them, well, I forgive you. Really, I forgive you. That was how they brought a bike, they took myself and the other young man, and we left the camp. In chapter 9, I tried to show I began by quoting this particular general. His name is called General Sani Abacha. He was a former military dictator in Nigeria. And he has a very strong quotation that says, when insecurity persists beyond 24 hours, the state is involved. Now, all I am doing, I didn't say anything, I just lifted the entire phone conversation between the bandits and the person that was negotiating on our behalf. That is what you will get in chapter 9. Because no serious nation, no serious country will have a recorded conversation of Boko Haram or ISIS or any terrorist, and the person will not be trapped. So I just listed the entire because I got access to the conversation. So that formed part of my chapter 9. And this is meant to go to any reasonable embassy in the world, the US embassy, UK embassy, the Nigerian highest government officials who have they should just see it and make their own judgment for themselves. So that is what you're going to get in chapter 9. And then in chapter 10, I brought the story of this young lady. Her name is Ummi Hassan. She is the one in the front cover of the book. This young lady has the most horrible experiences as a lady. Because while she was there, she had her menstrual cycle. And it was the most touching experience of my life there. This young lady was bleeding with nothing. No pad, no sign, no nothing. It was, we just couldn't, it was, I don't know how to describe it. So her experience is well captured in that chapter. And till now, she's still suffering. She's been struggling with some infection as a result of that situation that all of us went through. In chapter 11, I'm now winding down the story of all that has happened. That despite the horrible, painful, disgraceful situation that we all went through, God has a way of bringing good out of evil. He did it for Jesus, for so many people, including ourselves that were kidnapped. I had a sister, her name is Marianne, who was preparing for a surgery. Her 2 hips, she has been a sickler all her life. Her 2 hips were to be surgically removed. And we were preparing for that surgery before I was kidnapped. The moment she heard that I was kidnapped, all of us were, while we were there, we were praying for everybody, including my sister. So when I came out of the situation, I saw my mother first, and I saw my sister. So I ran to my sister, and I saw, because before then, 2 months before I was kidnapped, she wasn't walking. She was just on a wheelchair, and she wasn't going anywhere. She couldn't even help herself. So when I came out, I saw my sister. And I said to her, "Sister, how was the surgery?" She just laughed and said to me, "God did the surgery for free." Because the moment she heard I was kidnapped, the normal reaction is that people will be shocked to death, right? But she was shocked to life. She couldn't walk, but when she heard the story, she just stood up from that moment. And that was how she was never operated upon till today. The second story is about this young man, the priest that was kidnapped with me. His father was preparing for a prostate cancer surgery. And he couldn't pass urine for so many months before the incident. But when all of us were in that situation, his father was preparing for surgery, and mysteriously, his father became well. He never had to do that surgery. And the third part has to do with a family feud that has been there for so many years. Somehow, my uncles, my brothers who couldn't talk, because I was kidnapped, everybody was talking to each other to see how they could get me out of the situation. So for me, as a priest and as a person, as a Christian, I see these 3 important elements as one of those mysteries that can happen when a tragedy occurs. So in chapter 12 of the book, this is me, the day I came out of the unfortunate situation. And this is the priest that was helping with the negotiation. It's the one in rest. The other person is Hassan. He was the one that was involved. Now, these are the 4 of us that were kidnapped. This is Hassan, and this is his younger sister, Umi, and this is me, and this is Father Oliver. This is our bishop who helped to pay heavily the ransom for our freedom. And generally, our coming out, and my ability to be able to stand before you and speak in this way is courtesy of so many friends, family members who gave us their love, their friendship, their resources to bring us back to life. So, friendship of people helped me particularly to be able to rebuild and to heal fast. In chapter 13, I tried to explain a little bit about how I'm able to heal faster and better, because I started to realize the importance of trauma and victims of trauma. Those who have been abused and traumatized and never having access to counseling, therapy, and rehabilitation. So I began what we call OTVI, Old Trauma Victims Initiative. Now, these are all victims of those who have been kidnapped and released by Boko Haram. We have begun a monthly or sometimes bi-weekly sessions for those victims, and this is where they normally sit around to share their horrible experiences. We do counseling by just listening to them and offering them the best therapy we can in our own little way. So in chapter 13, I try to bring that experience. And of course, proceeds from the sale of the book that is on Amazon, that is here, will go to supporting victims of banditry and trauma. And in chapter 14, which is coming to the end of the book, I also try to go very academic in trying to provide solutions that I feel can also help in rebuilding trust, confidence, stability to not just Nigeria, but the whole of West Africa and generally in Africa. And here, I elaborated very importantly, international involvement, because I know that what is happening in Nigeria and every part of the world, every country is involved. The West, Africa itself, and every part of the world. Because everybody have what they call strategic interests, depending on what that interest. So I try to also bring how everybody can assist in helping Nigeria with that situation. My takeaways. In the midst of all that has happened, I'm a priest. I am still very, very hopeful. When I stand and speak to people, I am always very positive. And I know that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And I've also discovered that in life, when the chips are down, all that we have is God. All that we have in this world is God. When the chips are down. Again, I also discovered that God can always and has always used tragedy to give us so many powerful lessons in life. The healing of my sister is one example. Father Oliver is one example. So, tragedy has a way of bringing back healing and hope in the midst of uncertainty. And generally, I try to do a lot of awareness. My story that I'm alive is a testimony that I feel every other person should get to hear it. And I'm so happy that on this day, Pope Francis had the honor of receiving a copy of the book, just to be able to drive home that awareness that everybody should get involved. What affects your brother or your sister, no matter how far away you are, affects you. If you doubt it, let something happen to Nigeria. This family will be the first to be very worried. Tina and Dan, what are they going to do with Nigeria? They have a priest who is a Nigerian. So everybody should get involved, because your brother, your sister, or your in-law may be in Nigeria. Finally, the final chapter of the book is a tribute to a young lady called Leah Shaibu. This is not her picture, this is the picture of Umi. But metaphorically, Leah was kidnapped 8 years ago by Boko Haram. And when they came to her school, they picked all the girls. They asked the Christian girls to come one side and the Muslim girls to come one side. Leah was a Christian. Her many friends who were Christians decided to go with the Muslims. So she remained alone. And Boko Haram asked her, "Oh, you are still a Christian?" She said, "Yes." So they set free all the other students, all the other girls. Those who were Christians but identified as Muslims. And they kept Leah. Leah Shaibu is still with Boko Haram 8 years down the line. So my last chapter is a tribute to her friends, her parents, all those who are waiting patiently for the day Leah will be able to stand and talk about her story. I want to thank you for your kind attention.